Um, Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer, and along with my colleague Bethany, we've been setting up this student service improvement placement. So we helped create the actual placement, and we've been supporting the students over the last 4 weeks. And the students have been looking at service improvement when it comes to student well-being and how student well-being affects attrition. And they've been doing an absolutely great job. And today's webinar is a chance for them to showcase what they've been doing over the last 4 weeks. Beth?
Yeah. It's been our absolute pleasure to work alongside all the students across the North East and North Cumbria, and we would like to say a special thank you to all the teams that helped and engaged with us in getting the students to come on this journey and hopefully make some big improvements across the region regarding student wellbeing. I know I speak for both myself and Jen. We have had the best experience with these students, and it's true to say that the future of the NHS is in perfectly good hands because they've taught us so many more things than we actually knew. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that shines through this webinar.
So we're going to ask if everybody can turn their cameras off and their mics off, and we're also going to ask if you've got any questions, if you can pop the questions in the chat. Some of the students will be manning the chat as we go throughout the webinar, and we'll also pick some of the questions out for the end, so that you can come on screen and ask the questions. But if you can pop the question in the chat, it just takes some of the anxiety off them students about kind of answering questions on the spot as well. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Dan.
So hello, so I'm Daniel. I'm one of an adult nurse student. I am on my 3rd year in the Open University.
Fantastic. And we've got Greer.
Hi there, I'm Greer. I'm a 3rd year student doing adult nursing at the University of Cumbria.
Brilliant. And Charlotte.
Hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm a 3rd year adult student nurse at Edge Hill University.
And Hayes.
Hello everyone, I'm Hashide. I'm a 3rd year student nurse at the University of Cumbria.
And Steph.
Hi, I'm Steph. I'm a 3rd year adult student at Sunderland.
And Olivia.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I'm a registered nursing associate in my last year of my top-up course with the Open University.
And Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a 3rd year ODP student with Teesside University, and my placement is at James Cook Hospital.
And Cassie.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I'm 1st year student adult nursing with the Open University.
And Eva.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm a 3rd year student ODP student at Teesside University with my placement at James Cook Hospital.
And last but not least, Steph. Oh, you're up.
Well, I'm still Steph. I'm still from Sunderland University and I'm still a 3rd year adult student for nursing.
Fantastic. Right, is there everyone else wants to turn the cameras off? Dan, we can start.
I think we need to introduce Ali as well.
Oh, sorry, Ali. Ali.
Fabulous.
Hiya, I'm Ali. I'm a 3rd year student with the Open University.
Right, we are everyone. Good morning and welcome to our service improvement webinar. I'll be starting things off by giving you a whistle-stop tour on its contents. Firstly, we'll be discussing our introduction to the Ely team and our service improvement, how we managed to form a close bond together, utilising insight into our own and our team's characteristics. Then we'll be discussing how we scoped out the problem of student wellbeing within a placement setting and how we produced our first PowerPoint collaboratively as a single unit and presented back to the group, receiving feedback and a feedback presentation from the remaining members of the team. Then we'll delve into the world of project management from a brief guide by Paul Willard. Thank you once again, Paul, and hopefully show our understanding on the themes and what it means to be a project manager, before delving into our root cause analysis findings by utilising the fishbone diagram, how we found and created our own problem statement, then proceeding to understand what SMART goals are and creating our own project aim statement. This will then be followed by our own ideas of what resources we could create for our service improvement and how we work collaboratively to create and drive towards our final product, utilising the PDSA cycle and proactive feedback. Finally, we'll be showcasing our completed products and the recommendations we found and feed forward to help others on their service improvement journey. Hopefully, our passion and contribution to student wellbeing is on full display throughout the webinar. And if you have any questions during or after the presentation, please feel free to pop them in the chat and we will happily answer them. Enjoy, everyone. Next slide, please. Hayes.
During our placements, we engaged with the insight training, which allowed us as a group to gain an understanding of different color characteristics within our group. This helps create a bond, build stronger relationships, improve interpersonal skills, and promote better engagement and self-awareness. We found this allowed us to accommodate how we work, recognize individual preferences, and how tasks were distributed. As this worked well for us as a team, we decided that including the insights within the student resource will help the future workforce and practice educators to gain more self-awareness, improve communication, and foster respectful, productive, and holistic relationships. This will help individuals understand their own and others' communication preferences. Next slide, Steph.
We came together 4 weeks ago as a group of strangers from across the North East and North Cumbria, a group of healthcare students from different universities, trusts and professions. Some of us are studying adult nursing, others child and mental health nursing. Some are allied health professional students. We are a diverse group. And just to add in, we were completing this placement virtually, so we will never actually physically meet, which I admit was daunting, but we made it work. I think I can speak for all of us by saying we've all learned new things about ourselves, our skills and our talents. For example, I didn't realise I was so tech savvy, learning how to create documents, videos, all in one day, and gaining a new group of friends for life. So, on our first day, we were tasked with creating a resource to improve student wellbeing while on placement. As all students do, we looked at the published literature, such as the Repair and the Net project and the long-term workforce plan. We reached out to our peers to see if their experience matched what we'd been reading in the report. We asked them, have you experienced a negative impact on your well-being while on placement? And if so, what stopped you from leaving the course? What kept you going? The responses, unfortunately, confirmed the report's findings. This was the beginning of our stakeholder engagement. We would like to showcase our journey for improved well-being and better patient outcomes, while being aware of financial impact and environmental sustainability. We, as a team, are invested in this service improvement and hope you all, as stakeholders, will support us by implementing our service improvement after this webinar. Dan, next slide, please.
So our first task as a collective was to scope out information related to how student wellbeing affects student attrition. By working collaboratively, we were able to find multiple resources from cohort studies, national reports, and other peer-reviewed materials and documents, all to back up that our service improvement is required to help improve student wellbeing. Next slide, please. With the information obtained from the Repair team alongside Health Education England's 2020 study, containing 14,021 student voices, we found that the highest rated reasons students considered leaving their courses stem from stress levels, feeling of overwhelmness, within situations and their academic concerns, overall just averaging over 60% of students asked, when with negative placement experiences averaging just under 50%. These points are echoed and supported within the NET's 2022 report, showcasing the highest results in the same things: stress, workload, and feeling overwhelmed, alongside negative placement feedback, with a staggering 2/3 of students asking, having considered leaving their course or training. It's also important to state that these reports have established that support and friendliness of staff towards students on placements has been steadily declining, with an 11% drop since 2019. The studies presume that this could be due to the increased pressures put on health services within the past few years. Next slide, please. During this period, we decided it would be beneficial to gain our own data by requesting the aid of our peers from within a multitude of healthcare courses. We did this by creating a cohort study via social media. Saying it like that makes it sound so much grander than it actually was, as it was only just a single question. But that one question was very impactful. The question being, have you experienced a negative impact on your well-being whilst on placement? And if so, what prevented you from withdrawing from the course? From a total of 186 recipients, 51 responded, and the results showed 40 responders had experienced a negative impact during their placement period, with the majority stating their sole reason for continuing with the course was their determination and commitment to their qualification goal. However, from my own experience and some of the experiences within the group, it's not always doom and gloom. During the past 2 years of my course, I've experienced nothing but positivity from my placement settings, practice educators and academic advisors who have helped to support me to achieve my competencies and goals. So hearing all the negative stories and finding the evidence around negative impacts on wellbeing has really opened my eyes to a wider collection of experiences and has made me feel like I'm one of the lucky ones. To support the evidence found in our own survey, we did gather evidence from several literature sources. One cited from the National Library of Medicine 2017 focused on a multitude of different healthcare students and how their placement area had impacted the students' well-being. The study demonstrated many sides of the training environment, highlighting that some practice educators who may struggle to manage their own high levels of stress could contribute to a student's dissatisfaction within their educational or learning experiences whilst on placement, consequently affecting a student's mental well-being. Next slide, please. Upon accumulating all our data and presenting it back to Jennifer, Bethany, and the rest of the group, we collated our key themes and findings, documented that poor communication, poor work-life balance, poor concentration due to burnout and fatigue, along with isolation and lack of inclusion from other staff members, were the key themes within the literature studied. And these would help from the basis of these would help form the basis of our service improvement ideas, as we would want to utilise resources that would help combat these issues. Next slide, please, Charlotte.
Following the completion of our cohort study and resource findings, we were able to whittle down the experiences and problems found by students while on placement, including inappropriate feedback, lack of reflection time, and feelings of exclusion. The two main themes that the majority of our feedback linked to were communication and inclusion. Next slide, please. Communication between practice educators and students is paramount within the transferal of skills, knowledge, and maintenance of their mental health and well-being. Without a safe and secure space for open communication, stress and unease can fester and cause doubt within a student's abilities to practice effectively. But with clear and concise communication, structure and security is formed. The second consistent theme was inclusion. Feeling included as part of the multi-professional team is vital for mental well-being. I know from personal experience that a feeling of part of a team promotes a positive environment with positive relationship building between students, staff, and practice educators, helps promote a foundation of trust and respect, and can help ensure the team and student delivers more effective patient care. Following the deliverance of this presentation, we were delighted to receive feedback from the remaining members of the group, as feedback is a vital form of communication within healthcare education as long as it is delivered and received appropriately. Next slide, please, Emily and Eva.
With Eva and I being the only allied health professionals on this course. We only attended 2 days a week due to other commitments alongside this. We were given a different task. So the task was to provide the team with some feedback about the student wellbeing PowerPoint that Dan has just previously explained. Next slide, please. We started looking at what feedback is and why it's important. We discovered that feedback can often be taken by the recipient incorrectly if it's wrongly portrayed. It was important to us to relay this back to the team, that receiving and giving quality feedback is an integral role within healthcare and this service improvement placement. After doing this, we looked at different feedback models and the benefit of challenges of each one. This helped the group to consider how to give and receive feedback with peers, but also to understand and interpret external feedback on our improvement ideas. We used everything we had gathered and learnt to provide the group some constructive feedback, and we used the sandwich feedback model. So giving the team their first piece of peer-to-peer feedback helped the project by allowing open communication between team members and giving feedback to improve people's skills and the final resource at the end. Next slide, please, Cassie.
So initially, we explored the idea of creating recorded videos featuring the authentic voices of students like ourselves. However, after careful consideration, we decided against this approach due to concerns about expiry dates and cost effectiveness. We recognised that maintaining updated video content would be a substantial challenge. Our exploration led us to questionnaires and student booklets. After analysing our data, and believe me, we analysed over and over, I actually think my eyes are now square. It did become evident that communication is a significant challenge between students and educators. Consequently, we have chosen to develop a student handbook to address this issue. The handbooklet completed before and during the placement aims to facilitate enhanced communication channels from the outset. This is unlike other placement packs, which feel like are being talked at exercise. Despite the existence of welcome packs in placements, we believe that our workbook facilitates a two-way communication, and this will contribute to creating a more psychologically safe and welcoming environment for all who are involved. Speaking from personal experience, I believe such a resource would have greatly benefited me, potentially transforming my previous student feedback on placement from negative to a positive by not feeling so lost, so alone, like you were a spare part. By having consistent, open and honest feedback during placements utilising elements and coaching, students and practice educators will be more empowered to work collaboratively in managing patient outcomes. Next slide, please, Olivia.
We were lucky enough to have the opportunity to meet with the project manager of the Ely team, Paul Willard. He kindly explained at the start of the meeting that his presentation was just a snippet into the big world of project management. I personally found the meeting very useful and interesting, as we have been able to create an understanding of what project management is and what techniques and tools are available to use when creating a project. Working alongside a level of project management has really benefited the team. We have been able to be part of a project known as a temporary placement in order to deliver our end product. The Moscow technique represents 4 categories of initiatives, which are known as the must have, should have, could have, and will not have. Within our project, we have followed this technique by receiving regular feedback, reviewing and updating constantly throughout the process, leading to our final product. We managed as a team between ourselves to delegate small tasks using the Agile projects approach throughout this experience to be able to achieve our end goal. Although I thought this would be challenging working in a larger group, but it has truly been a pleasure. Working alongside such a strong team where everyone has different strengths and productively participated has made this whole experience so much more enjoyable throughout the 4 weeks. The teamwork has got us to where we are today, and we really couldn't be happier to be able to present to you today as our final product. Thank you. And next slide, please, Hayes.
Our roadmap shows elements of the project goals and what we planned to deliver. We began by scoping the problem and finding what the problem was, in which brainstorming, mind mapping, and setting goals and deadlines became our objectives. Information from various surveys shows the root causes of what healthcare students face whilst on placement. With the cohort study and evidence-based approaches, a problem statement was made, and we as a team would try to address this area of concern. It was important to contextualize that problem, show what is important to the student, set aims and objectives, and implement improvements when necessary. Having a roadmap allowed us to stay focused, meet objectives, and delegate. Next slide, Ali.
This slide explains the fishbone diagram, a visual tool used to identify the possible cause of a problem, used to structure our brainstorming sessions. The diagram is shaped like a fishbone with the problem at the head of the fish and the potential causes branching off as bones. Using this tool, we were able to identify the cause of the problem and develop solutions to address it. Next slide, please, Dan.
So SMART is an acronym used to help create and define the parameters of goals, helping to ensure that objectives stay attainable and within a certain time frame. Therefore, broken down, SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant, and time-bound. When the group was first introduced to SMART, we were anything but. We struggled to maintain the specific intent of our personal goal set and ended up convoluting while simultaneously creating an unrealistic goal for ourselves to complete. However, with some time away, focusing on our project brief, problem statement, and information gained within our root cause analysis, we began breaking down the acronym section by section, keeping in mind our resource ideas. S, specific. We thought about creating a handbook for students, creating a standardized student board template, potentially creating a video for guidance as students start their placement journey. M, measurable. Multiple measurements were suggested, like measuring the decrease in complaints, reduction in students leaving the course, a reduction of sick leave, but as a group, we decided we wanted to measure the level of improvement in student wellbeing during their placement periods by utilising our own service materials. A, attainable. Ensuring the resources and time it takes to create them are utilising the strengths of all members of the team and creating a collaborative work style. R, realistic or relevant. Creating resources that were relevant to wellbeing and an aim of improving attrition for all healthcare students. Finally, T, time-bound or timely. Creating our resource within our set 4-week placement. With the information utilising SMART, we each went away and tried to construct our own aim statement for our service improvement, which we could feed back to the group. We were then tasked to ask clarifying questions: what, who, why, when, how, and finally, what. By doing this, we were able to hone our statements and achieve our final aim statement written before you. Within 4 weeks, create a standardized student handbook with an additional Get to Know Me section that can be delivered to each placement provider, then student, alongside a standardized student board template that can be utilized within the placement setting for staff wellbeing. We aim to collate information regarding student and placement feedback within 6 months of deliverance via a survey sent out with the pack. We hope to achieve a 10 to 20% increase in positive placement experiences. Next slide, please, Steph.
So we wanted to include stakeholders from the beginning. Yes, that's all you guys. This also completes our legal obligations. But more importantly, we wanted to be accountable, transparent throughout. And we did that by engaging stakeholders along the way. By engaging the stakeholders, we learned lessons which allowed us to make a more substantial resource. We looked at best practices, contacted placement teams to look at the current documents available to students. We did find that they were all one-sided from placement to student, so we wanted to ensure our handbook would be a two-way communication tool. Next slide, please. Service improvement relies on stakeholders' different views and knowledge. So after our first draft of the handbook, we presented it to Jennifer and Bethany, who gave the feedback, which, although it was our first draft, wasn't actually too bad. We took this on board, implemented the changes. Next, we invited Natalie Godley to look over it from her perspective. Again, implemented changes per the feedback. Then, again, we sent it to a student, Hayley, who isn't on this placement, to see what her feedback on the booklet was. Again, thankfully, very positive, with only one little suggestion to add something in. At the same time, we asked a university healthcare lecturer to give her feedback. Again, all very positive, and just a few recommendations to implement. Next slide for Cassie.
Innovation relies on stakeholders. Different viewpoints and knowledge. They often include customers, clients, or patients who can shed light on market trends, industry dynamics, and regulations. Stakeholder engagement is to increase ownership, collaboration, and support. Engaging stakeholders early innovation improves implementation, adoption, and success by increasing buy-in and acceptance. During this, we learned stakeholders are necessary to have earlier involvement, so we tried to do this by doing the survey peer. These were sent out to educators around university from the Ely team, and as we have gone through the data, we received feedback to help us make the changes to the product, making this better, useful, and more improved. The student handbooks that placements do already have, we find are a very one-way communication, which doesn't give us much information, which, to be fair, is an anxiety ball waiting to burst, because who works there? What are the names? Who do I approach if I need something? Where are things kept? Whereas our handbooklet is a two-way communication to provide enough information about ourselves and the placement to help engage and form good workplace relationships, and to know who we can reach out to if we do need to raise anything that's bothering us. The worst thing for me is going into someone else's territory, not knowing anyone whatsoever, constantly asking you who you are, what's your name again, what course you're doing, then treating you like a healthcare, not knowing your background or what skills you have, then not meet any competencies at all because of this. Whereas our handbook would reduce stress and anxiety of the very first day to start. Unfortunately, with our questionnaires time and constraints limited, our response period was to 2 days. That meant we only received the 19 responses, which was no one's fault. It's part of our learning. We examined and graphed the data, and these insights helped us improve our product. For this to be sent out, as we honestly think this product is a winner. The survey itself, we found that 90% of respondents said wellbeing affected students' attrition. Fewer than 53% of participants actually possessed a student handbook. This raised questions to us about how students can prepare mentally without knowing what to expect in the real world. Students would benefit from these with easier information availability. According to 43% of respondents, our survey data helped us to improve our product and address student wellbeing issues. Next slide, please, Ali.
Here is the layout of the Student Placement Handbook. We looked at what we have learned through the research and coaching on the Ely placement. This feedback given was to humanise the handbook and have a two-way process of communication. With revising the handbook many times, it gave us a foundation to build upon to lead us to our final product of the Student Placement Handbook, which will be discussed later on in this presentation. Next slide, please, Steph.
So throughout our placement, we have learned so many things that as healthcare students, we probably never have known about, such as using the tools that help drive service improvement and keep it on track. From identifying stakeholders to completing a SWOT analysis, create a flow chart, lessons learned, and that dreaded Gantt chart that's become the bane of my life and kept me up at night. If I never see one again, I'll be very, very happy. These are all part of our service improvement and our ways of communicating our vision to each other and to our stakeholders. ensuring everyone is kept in the loop and is aware of where we are. These are very valuable tools to demonstrate progress over time, document lessons learned, and keep the project on track. Liv.
The Plan Do Study Act, which is also known as the PDSA cycle, is a 4-part model. The cycle provides a structure for individuals or teams to follow alongside managing and testing the possible changes for quality improvement. Using this approach really helped our team. The cycle has allowed us as a team to be able to overcome the challenges faced with working from home virtually in such a larger group. Being made up of different educational backgrounds and stages of our training became our advantage. Working on the project following this specific method made the process easier by being able to provide a clear structure throughout and at any given time. PDSA also assisted on creating an understanding of the section, reasoning and the implementations behind the improvements we wanted to make. The method also allows stakeholders to see if the changes wanting to be made will succeed in the future, leading to less disruption and conflict before releasing the final product. We've been able to collect feedback effectively from a large variety of individuals within the healthcare setting, instead of solely focusing on one specific type of feedback from one profession. As weeks have progressed, our team has constantly made changes throughout to create this final product. We have listened to the feedback given throughout the last 4 weeks and have taken everyone's opinions on board to create a person-centred final product. Next slide, please, Emily and Eva.
We used our findings to design a standardised student board to be used in every department to ensure that it's easily recognisable to students. We hope that by standardising the layout of the student board, it would make students feel less worried about starting new placements, as they would know where to look on the board for information. It would also reduce the workload of the practice educator, as students would have access to contact and spokes opportunities and can arrange this for themselves. We looked at our own student boards and thought of ways in which we could adapt what we had to make it work for every health professional student. On the board, we included a who's who. It's important for students to be able to identify specific people within the department and have access to their contact information. This will promote student independence. Student wellbeing is another section on the board, and as this is the primary focus of this project, it's important to highlight this section. It would identify where students can access support from the Trust, the universities, academic support, and also external support in the local area. QR codes could be used as displayed on the as displayed on the second board. I've made an example to put it in a bit of perspective. This is based on our trust, so obviously it would be adapted to each trust. Under each heading would be standardised. We've included ward department policies and expectations. This section gives the educators an opportunity to identify any key expectations. This would also include QR codes to documents such as policies for uniform, sickness, and how to report any concerns. This would give the students the opportunity to be independent and also gain an understanding of what's expected of them when starting their placement. We also thought it would be important to include a hospital map and highlight any useful locations. This could be, again, on a QR code that students would have access to anywhere. And the last section we included was updates and opportunities. Any student updates such as meetings, portfolio reviews, placement assessment dates and extra training courses such as the one we've had the opportunity to take part in would be displayed on the board. Updates are vital for students' progression and enables them to prepare and plan. Ensuring extra learning opportunities are available to students will encourage them to engage in their own learning and will help develop their skills beyond their placement. It will also give students a taster for what will be expected of them once qualified to engage in continuing professional development. So there's the example of the one that we designed based around our placement at the moment. Next slide, please, Gria.
Now you will see the finalised product of the Student Placement Handbook. We wanted the handbook to be versatile for all healthcare students across all fields. The aim of this handbook is that it is standardised and provides information and an overview of the placement area. I have found that some placement handbooks have been a one-way communication document that is aimed only at the student. However, this booklet promotes communication between students, practice educators, and the wider multidisciplinary team, promoting communication before the start of the placement, with everyone involved, which will create great rapport and well-being. This handbook can be electronic or a paper document, as we have included QR codes and internet links for further information, which is ensuring this handbook is working in line with the Greener Allied Health Professional Hub and delivering a net zero NHS. We have used the term practice educator throughout as an umbrella term, as different placement providers, trusts, and organisations have different names, such as skill facilitators, clinical educators, supervisors, and practice assessors. Next slide, please. This is me page. This page allows the students to give the practice educator an insight into who they are, previous placement experiences, and what they would like to achieve on that specific placement. We felt this was important as it provides information from an academic and clinical level. I personally feel this would have been beneficial in my past placements to show my clinical experience, especially going through the 3 years, and it would also aid reflection on my personal development. From our research, there was a consistent pattern of being labelled the student. Therefore, we have humanised it, the following page, by allowing them to have an insight into our life, showing our likes, dislikes, hobbies, clinical interests, and our future plans. This will create a forward-thinking discussion, common interests, and see us students as a person. Did you know? Reasonable adjustments are important whilst on placement. This is done in collaboration with the student, university, and placement provider to support and meet the personal learning plan on an individual basis. We as students thought this section was important, as some students may hesitate to disclose their needs. By doing this, it's having a positive and holistic approach, building good working relationships with one another, and will encourage more students to disclose their needs. Next slide, please. Understanding each other. When we started this placement, coming from different backgrounds, trust, cultures, and universities, we participated in the insight tool. We found out the types of energy we are and our best forms of communication. On reflection, when working together, we found this insight tool was beneficial to our experience, communication, and learning. Therefore, we all agreed this was a must within the handbook. So let me talk you through it. Selecting 10 words that describe you, then matching them to the colour. The most prominent colour is your energy and shows how you communicate, process information, and feel. This allows the student, practice educator, and the wider MDT know their best form of communication, which will lead to fewer disagreements and misunderstanding. Knowing how you best communicate will be vital to giving feedback and receiving feedback and improving your future progress. I bet you all want to know your energy and colours now. Next slide, please. About the placement area. Throughout our research, we found that some placement areas provide information on the placement and some don't. We felt it was important to have information regarding the placement area so the student knows what is expected of them, their shift pattern and contact numbers. I know from peer-to-peer conversation, many students worry about their upcoming placement, which then creates a bundle of worry, anxiety and stress. This section on the handbook will reduce the stress, the worry and the anxiety, as all the placement area information will be available, enhancing student wellbeing. Meeting our team. This is a section in the handbook where the placement team can put information about themselves and the team. They could be created by popping pictures of themselves. This will create visual communication by having a face to the name. We have also humanised this by also including the team members' likes, dislikes, hobbies, clinical interests, and what they would like to facilitate in the student learning. You will have noticed that both the student and the team can show their insight colours, which will enhance communication for everyone within the placement area. You may have noticed a common element in this handbook. You've got it, it's communication, not only for the student, but for the practice educator and the wider team. This handbook is not just for students. We equally wanted this handbook to work both ways with the student, the practice educator and the wider team, enhancing the communication with one another and having a feeling of having an inclusive feel. I, for one, love being part of a team when on placement as I feel involved, valued and I excel in my learning, which gives a better patient outcome. Next slide, please. Potential wider learning and spokes. This allows the placement area to input any information they feel will be beneficial for further learning and going out to different placement areas on spokes. As a student, it is important to have their wider learning and going on them spokes, as this is the only opportunity to explore all areas of healthcare services, as when we are registered professionals, we will be based in one certain area of employment. So this is our opportunity to find out which areas we enjoy and have a feel of where we would like to work in the future. Most common medications and abbreviations. Knowing the most common medications used on placement area will give the student a better understanding of the medication, patient's condition, and the rationale for the medication. We have acknowledged some abbreviations and that some different placements may have different abbreviations. Therefore, additional space can be added to support the area of placement trusted organisations for their unique abbreviations. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Placement first checklist. This checklist is an expanded version of other placement documents, and we felt this was important to have a standardised checklist in the booklet to ensure the student understands the placement area and is prepared for that placement, which will benefit in the student wellbeing. As our project team members come from different trusts, we have ensured there is space to include specific placement details, such as emergency telephone numbers, as we know this may be different in different placement areas. Informal feedback. This is a great way to open conversations, gain feedback and reflect whilst on placement. From our student feedback, it was noted that time away from the placement area with the student and practice educator is beneficial as it allows one-to-one discussions without distractions. I personally have found that when I'm on placement, I sometimes feel like I am hounding my practice educator to give me feedback for my university documentation and competencies. And you will all know yourselves, no one wants someone pestering you whilst you're busy, sometimes overworked, and even someone constantly at your side. But by setting some time aside to remove yourself from the placement area without the distractions, it could be a short amount of time that is needed that ticks one job off your list. And believe me, the relief for me having my documents completed is like a weight lifted off my shoulders, which I'm sure that will be the same for you guys. However, may I add, the amount of feedback on this handbook has been constant, and I've been the one designing this handbook. So the so-called little amendments here, there, and everywhere have been that constant pest of mine. But I am pleased it's been worth it, and we now are presenting it to you. Having this informal feedback section may also lead to a more learning culture and possibly another effective change in practice. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hints and tips. We thought it was a great idea to include hints and tips for students and the placement area. The student notice board. Within a placement area, as previously spoken about, we envision this being used in each placement area, as this will make students less worried about going into the new placement, as they will know to look at the board and find out any information they need. If you think about it, it will reduce the work of the practice educator, as students will have access to all the information they will need and be able to work independently to seek information, organise spokes and wider learning. Being prepared and organised before and whilst on placement is important for both the student and practice educator. Coaching. Coaching is a style of practice for students, practice educators and the MDT, as it facilitates learning, improves work performance and creates effective collaboration. From my personal view, and I would hope the project team would agree, that this 4 weeks has involved us coaching one another. The peer-to-peer working, in which we are from all areas of the North Cumbria and North East, working from home and from different fields of healthcare professions, we have worked exceptionally well, creating mutual respect, improving specific skills and behaviours, which are all beneficial within the coaching style. The importance of debriefing is it prompts people to talk, which then leads to evaluating the event, encouraging reflection and expressing feelings and emotions. Having a debrief helps deal with possible distress, so communicating this with one another prevents post-traumatic stress disorder, acute stress disorder, anxiety and depression. Wellness, QR codes and other links. We believe wellbeing is important for everyone within the healthcare profession. Therefore, we have included QR codes from the universities to direct students to their university web links. We understand from the literature that staff burnout has a negative impact on staff members and students. Therefore, we have included other links to allow students and the MDT to access help if they need it. Next slide, please. Frequently asked questions. We have selected the best fit frequently asked questions and answers for the students to reduce worry and stress. By answering the questions, it will help identify gaps in the understanding. Within the answers, it helps engagement in conversations that will develop good working relationships and trust. The student voice. With having the student voice page, it allows us to document students' thoughts and feelings. This was useful to have to drive us to the right direction to produce this, which I think is an amazing. The practice educator's voice. We also thought it was important to have a page for the practice educator's voice, as this is an inclusive handbook and it is important to know what they want to say. Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom can be influential and enrich our lives, moods, and attitudes. Being a student, it is hard work, studying and learning with lots of perseverance and sacrifice. But remember, it's the love of what you are doing, so enjoy your placement. Being a practice educator, your teaching encouragement are changing tomorrow. Your relationship with the students strengthens the passion for our learning. Next slide, Hayes.
These are some of the recommendations we came up with. These are to ensure the student placement handbook is in circulation and in use within the NHS Trust, in organizations, private sector, and any areas that have students. Due to our time restraints on this placement, we would recommend that at 3 and 6 months' time, there is a follow-up and feedback regarding the use of the student placement book and its effectiveness. Feedback from educators regarding the use of the placement handbook and its effectiveness. Follow up on the use of student boards within placement areas and feedback on its effectiveness. In future, the increase of peripatetic practice assessors within placement areas to ensure students are supported. Also in future, the appointments of wellbeing champions within NHS Trust, the inclusion of online group wellbeing support for all healthcare students, and we also recommend a SOP to support all student wellbeing in clinical areas. Thank you. Next slide, Beth and Jen.
So thank you so much for listening to our students talk about their journey. I'm sure you'll agree that they've been absolutely amazing. And like Beth said right at the beginning, they've been amazing to be around as well. They've been totally inspiring. Has anybody got any questions that they haven't put in the chat? Brilliant. Can I just ask all the students to pop their cameras back on just as a final hurrah to everybody, and again say well done to everyone. Barbara?
Sorry, I did have one question actually. Has this service improvement changed how yous are going to be practice educators, practice supervisors on qualification? Steph?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think it's changed. Also, it's changed the way that we look at things as well, because obviously we've had good and bad experiences, and what we're doing is turning the bad and the negative into a good and a positive by thinking, well, we don't want to be like that. We don't want to treat others like that, and we want to be spoken to the same way others would like to be spoken to as well. So it's definitely broadened our minds to be more alert and more vigilant to what is around you.
Charlotte?
I think it's definitely given us an insight, not only from the students' perspective, but having that feedback from actual practice assessors and practice supervisors that we've been working with. And obviously just understanding as students, just sometimes take that step back and understand that, yeah, even though these people are our mentors and practice educators and things like that, they are also very overworked and very stressed, and having a student can be very stressful, but obviously it is having that sort of oversight into everything and obviously seeing it from both parts as well.
Yeah, and do you think that's changing how you are as students in preparation for your next placement? Because feedback's absolutely a two-way process, and that preparation is a two-way process as well. So sorry, that was two questions I had there.
It's all right.
Steph?
Steph?
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think it's changed how we look at each other, at staff members, at how we work, and also including other people just from the group. As a team, we've gelled, we've bonded. There's some who've had to, leave after a week. Some have to leave after one day. I do think that realizing the impact that inclusion has on students is so big that hopefully, even if it's a small, tiny increment of change, we make some difference, and we take it on in my careers.
Daniel?
Yeah, it's just had a huge impact on my kind of mindset and view of students, and in a placement setting, at the information that we gained speaking to the group and speaking with the stakeholders as well, it's just expanded so much of what I thought a student was. And actually, I know now in previous placements where I might have slipped down as well, like I can actually better myself by properly engaging, because I'll say it myself, I've not always engaged in the handbooks in previous placements, and yet with this sort of placement tool, I would want to engage with it. It's interesting. It gives me a lot of information, and I would then feel benefited from it. I would actually get more from the resource itself and the placement.
Emily?
Like everyone else was saying, it's definitely changed the way that I think about students. So yesterday, me and Eva were speaking to some first years that are coming into placement. So as recent as yesterday, we've took what we've learned over the last 4 weeks and already started to implement it by thinking about what we say to them, how we give them their feedback, and the questions that they were asking is answering them on everything that we've learned, and telling them just be careful about this, because we now know with the recent research that we've done that this is a key thing that students are struggling with. So when you do start having to juggle placement alongside everything else, just to be mindful and try and ultimately keep your well-being at your 4-point, your main focus.
Fantastic. Olivia?
Hi, yeah, just like I agree with everything everyone else has said. For me personally, starting this placement has actually given me a bit more confidence into the sense of knowing that I'm not personally the only one struggling while completing my course. So us all coming together has made me feel a lot more relaxed in the sense to know that we're all in it together, that we are looking for stuff to help people, and hopefully in the future for other students, all this anxiety and stuff when they're feeling a bit nervous won't be there anymore. So it's definitely helped me being on this for the last 4 weeks.
Brilliant. Ali?
Yeah, hi. I agree with what everyone said. If I'd had this handbook at the start of my very first placement, I believe all of my placements would have probably gone really well. I had one bad experience and held my head up high and just continued. But if I'd had the handbook at the time, I could have reflected on how I was feeling, my mental health, and it would have probably turned the negative placement into a positive, regardless of how I was treated.
Lisa?
Couple of things. I think you did a fantastic bit of work, and I know when you met with our team, we talked about linking up. Oh my God, sorry. We talked about linking up on Teams and how difficult it is, and how Barbara set our team up actually on Teams, and you can see how you can kind of work together. It's really you know, it does still bring people together, and they can bring out great bits of work. There was one thing I wanted to ask about. Obviously, you mentioned about a 3 and 6 month review of the document. How are you actually getting it out there? So is it going to be meeting with PDS, because it's developed and we want to put it out there and then get buy-in from them? That might be for Jen.
Sorry, Lisa, you broke up really badly at the end of that question.
It was just about are you linking with the PDS? Sorry.
You sound like you sound like Metal Mickey, and I'm really showing my age there.
Sounds like you put it in the chat. Put it in the chat.
Yeah,
Lisa.
I'll put it in the chat.
Fabulous. So the students were very aware of the fact that because this was a short placement, that the follow-up on a project was going to be the difficult part for them, and we did discuss this together about like how they would what would happen, and essentially it was down to, if the project was going to be a longer term project, then they've all agreed that what they would do is they would create a MS forms questionnaire, which would be sent out at, say, a 3-month and a 6-month period, to get feedback on how the document is being used, what type of use it's getting, and anything that people would recommend changes or tweaks to improve it over a long term. So although they've been constantly doing that PDSA cycle throughout the implementation of it, they know that actually when it came to using it on a long-term basis, there might be other things that came up that you don't realize in the short term. So they all understood that it was really important for the long term to have some feedback, to see whether changes would need to be made because of that as well. I think that's what you were asking, Lisa. Hanny. Anne-Marie, sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute then. So just to say thank you, and really well done, really professionally presented. You've obviously put a lot of work into it. It's really positive for yourselves, for future learners, for educators. I was just thinking, have you considered the potential impact on patient safety? So the things you've described not only impact on positive well-being, but also those relationships between you and your educators, having that positive experience, feeling welcome to the placement, and that has a positive impact on culture and psychological safety, which is the really high-profile things, aren't they, currently in the NHS? So it might be good to follow it up or do a little bit more research and think, you know, how will this impact positively on patients? Because everything we do is ultimately about patients, isn't it? And also that you can use that as another driver for encouraging all the placement areas to and students to use this handbook.
Steph?
Yeah, so that was something that we did actually think about on the grounds of, you know, research has said that unhappy workforce sort of thing is, you know, going to lead to more negative outcomes and, you know, less production, which entails, you know, a worse patient outcome, really. Nobody wants to have a member of healthcare staff looking after you, whether that be, you know, helping you have your meals, helping you learn how to walk in surgery, if that member of staff is low, their well-being's out the window, their mood's not good, they are uncomfortable, they've got anxiety. So I do think improving one would improve another. So yeah, I think happy staff is happy patients.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you've just responded to that, and it's really positive, but there's a lot of focus on the students, and really there should be an awful lot of focus on the environment and the people working in that environment to make you feel confident and positive. And you know, some of the stats around the psychological safety, because you talked initially, I didn't join immediately because it overlapped with another meeting, but you were talking about students having negative experiences on placement. And if you receive a negative experience and anyone, there's bystanders, that has a directly negative impact on patient care. And I think that is a really important thing to capture to drive this forward. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, Barbara, is there any funding to print the handbooks?
No, because they'll all go on ARC or in place as part of that, is what I would think, as part of that student induction and preparation to those individual areas. And I would suggest there's a caveat on it that a student reviews it whilst on placement every 6 months.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have a copy of it, or even if it's an electronic copy, in every placement area, and saying, students are being encouraged to use this, so that all the staff supporting you, because it's not just the practice supervisors, assessors, practice educators, healthcare support workers do a lot of support, don't they, for students, particularly early on in your programmes, because everyone can positively influence your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Beth?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect food for thought there, Anne-Marie, absolutely. I know that was something as a team we were all very mindful of, both me and Jen as the project leads for this, but also in our wider project group, developing this workbook, that the team, from the get-go understood that two-way responsibility and accountability for supporting each other and well-being. And I believe that's where the thought process came through, by having those external well-being support links that can be accessed by the student, but also, like you said, the support team around them within clinical placements. Because although there's a lot of resources within, certain organisations, some more than others, but actually there's a lot of untapped resources regarding NHS, external support. So the students were very passionate about kind of getting those in. So I know that ties in well, like you say, with that dual accountability, but also I feel like the inclusion of that insights programme, again, was trying to tackle that more understanding of where both practitioners are come from, or where the team's coming from, and actually what headspace they are in on that day of placement, to help mitigate with any of those possibly negative impactful interactions, both from students and their supporting staff members. So we have tried to particularly focus on the elements within the book, how they can be both dually used for the benefit of the team. Yeah.
Cassie?
Yeah, just kind of in response to Anne-Marie's, I know from a previous one, I didn't have a very nice experience on my placement. And although inside I was feeling a bit crap and gutted and like a spare part lost puppy, the impact I still had on my patients was I walked on each day with a big smile, regardless of how I was feeling, because at the end of the day, they were the most important thing. And I think sometimes it is easier for some people to hide it and others not. But that's then where the "this is me" page comes in, so that you can already have that interaction with your placement assessor, educator, facilitator, just so that it doesn't end up becoming a major thing for that patient to then be on the back end of that. So if you've already got the interaction and the knowledge, and you've built a really good working relationship, and each triggers, if you're having a bad day, you can tell, then that patient isn't going to come off the back of that then. But just from previous, I still came away with really good feedback from patient surveys, because I don't know, I think I'm just a giddy keeper, so I made them smile regardless.
Daniel?
Yeah, it was just coming back from Anne-Marie's question, and the initial idea was that the placement booklet and our handbook would be in the placement first, so they actually get to fill all the documentation in before it's then sent to the student. So all the information's already populated in it from each different placement, depending on where they are. And as the student gets allocated that placement, that's when the booklet would go to them. So then they've got all this information before they're even setting foot within the placement setting. So it's, as for with myself, I get notifications about 6 weeks before the placement. So I'd have that handbooklet there and then when I find out that's my placement, and then it would kind of track on from there. And having the actual handbook with, say, the insights portion filled out on, say, a student handboard or within the department on their staff, it's giving you that insight straight away that these are the people I can lean on, these are the people that I can go to, and it's having that application already there, like, and the forethought to go into it.
Brilliant. I think the other thing, Anne-Marie, is when we started this way back at the beginning, 4 weeks ago, feels like a lifetime now, doesn't it, guys? We did a big training session around civility and incivility and how that affects patient care and how it affects people's ability to do their job properly. So a lot of what the guys have looked at when they've done this is how to smooth that civility pathway a little bit by creating that communication and ultimately leading to better patient outcomes. So we did right at the beginning, we kind of incorporated the psychology of why this two-way system is so important, because it stops students feeling like they need to leave their courses, which means we're not losing as many students, which means our future NHS workforce is being geared up, ready for the future. But ultimately, everybody agreed that actually, when they don't feel like they're part of the team, when they're not feeling like they are included in the bigger picture, the patients do suffer. Even when we try not to let it, it does happen. And that's because incivility is absolutely a key thing that causes them types of issues. And it was something that as a team we looked at as well. So yeah, thank you for your question. Anybody else? Brilliant. Right, thank you so much. And we've finished in plenty of time. Steph?
Yeah, just before we go off, Jen, I just want to just give a little shout out because there is a few members of our team who actually couldn't get here today. So thanks to the help for Nicole, Poppy, Emily, and there was Jo. Yeah, definitely not forgetting
and the
Jo.
other Emily.
Yeah, and the other Emily. So yeah, I just want to make sure that they were included. They did do the work. Obviously, unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. So thank you all. It's been a fantastic 4 weeks.
Brilliant.
And to you and Beth and Natalie, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone who's came to see our student placement experience and attending. And I think we've given you a little bit of time back as well. Thank you so much.
Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Well done, guys. Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I've turned the recording off so you